Happy Camper Radio starts in 3, 2, 1. It is the Happy Camper Radio Show. Hello, everybody. Glad to be back here again with you. I'm Skip. I am a happy camper. And no question about it, my friends, I'm going to do my very best to make a happy camper out of you. It's episode 158. Have you ever dreamt of hiking the Appalachian Trail? I'm talking a 5 or 6 month journey, but you've said to yourself, oh no, I'm too old for that. Just cannot do it. Well, folks, on the show today, we're going to be talking with the author of a brand new children's book called When Grandma Gatewood Took a Hike. It's a story about a 67-year-old woman who hiked the Appalachian Trail not once, not twice, but 3 times. If you ever thought you were too old to take that journey, stick around. We've got a great show lined up for you today. You can get in touch with us here at the Happy Camper Radio Show anytime by calling 404-537-2267. That's 404-537-CAMP. You can like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter at Camp Talker, add us to Circles on Google+, and of course you can subscribe to our YouTube channel. Go to www.happycamperradio.com. You'll find all of our social media icons on the right-hand side of the page. You click on any one of them, you'll connect up with us. Take the studio tour, see what we've got going on here behind the scenes. A lot of great information, a lot of great camping tips. You're never too young, never too old to go camping, and you're never too young and old to listen to Happy Camper Radio. The Happy Camper Radio Show is heard all around the world by great listeners just like yourself. You can find us in the iTunes Store, on Podbean, Myra Guide, Stitcher, the BlackBerry Podcast Directory, and now I am pleased to announce for the first time that the Happy Camper Radio Show can be found on iHeartRadio. Yes! How exciting is that? For you iHeartRadio listener fans, all you have to do is put Happy Camper Radio in your search engine. You'll find us with no problem at all. Download the free app to your smartphone or your iPad, or you can listen online at the office or at home. iHeartRadio, we're glad to be a part of their family. Let's head over to the shout-out window. I've got some great listeners who subscribe to us on social media this past week. I want to take an opportunity to recognize them. First of all, to Kevin Burke of Washington, D.C., Rolf Averill of Arizona, Giovanni Ramos of San Juan, Puerto Rico. They like us on Facebook. Andrew Main follows us on Twitter. And finally, Kim Trimble subscribes to our YouTube channel. Thank you, each and every one of you. Glad to have you on board, and more importantly, thank you for being a part of this great Happy Camper Radio family. Would you like to be a guest on the program? I'd like to talk to you also. Get in touch with me, Skip, S-K-I-P, at happycamperradio.com, and we'll make that happen. Hey, did you catch episode 157 last week? We had the lovely Lori in the studio. And Lori has some great recipes. She is putting together a nice food blog, and I'm giving her a hand with that in my spare time. But we're going to have her on the show regularly here, not too far down the road, because in addition to going camping, we always enjoy taking along the camp menu. Unlike myself, who has a set menu in his hip pocket, some people like to dabble a little bit at the campground. And there's nothing wrong with that. If you like setting up the camp, if you like setting up the camp kitchen, if you like taking charge of what the meal menu is going to be, then stick around, because we're going to have some great episodes for you. But last week on the show, we talked about charcoal versus gas grilling. And we've got a lot of good responses from our listeners on that. In fact, I went here to our Facebook page just this past week and pulled off a couple of those. And here's some of the responses we've got. Peter Crouch writes, haven't heard the episode, but charcoal rules. Danny Kidd says, I love the convenience of gas, but miss the taste of charcoal. At some point, I'm going to buy a cast iron smoker chip box, and instead of putting wood chips, try putting a piece or two of charcoal in it and see if it gives me the benefit of gas, but the flavor of charcoal. Okay. Finally, Ron Holmes from New Jersey says, Listen to a bunch of your episodes, and 157 is so far my favorite. I use the campfire ring and I cook over cherry wood or hickory only. We camp all over the Northeast, and it's a long-time family tradition. Love your show. Thank you all so very much. I really appreciate your feedback. Keep those emails and your Facebook posts coming, and I'd be more than happy to share them with our listeners. Always a good group of people here at the Happy Camper Radio Show. All right, folks, I want to take you now to the phone lines because we have a special guest that we're going to be talking to. She is going to be introducing her brand new book that's out, and you're going to be able to find out where you can pick up a copy of it. I've read it 3 times already, just to give you an idea how exciting this book really is. Let's go to the phone lines. We are delighted to have with us today Michelle Houts. She is author of the book, When Grandma Gatewood Took a Hike. Michelle, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Glad to have you here with us. How did you learn about Grandma Gatewood, and tell us what inspired you to write this magnificent children's book?
Well, I have always loved hiking, and here in Ohio, where I am, we have a beautiful area called Hocking Hills. The part of Ohio that I live now is very flat. So when we go hiking, we go a few hours southeast to the Hocking Hills area. I had actually hiked a trail from a place called Old Man's Cave to Cedar Falls and back again many times without knowing that I was hiking on the Grandma Gatewood Trail. It was named for her in the 1980s after she became the first woman to solo hike the Appalachian Trail. Now, I didn't know that when I was out hiking, and because Old Man's Cave is this legendary place where an old man lived, I thought that I would research who this old man was, and I'd write a children's book about the old man from Old Man's Cave. Well, as I got there, I found out a few things. I found out his name was Richard Rowe. He lived in the early 1800s. He was the son of a fur trader, and as he became an adult, he became a recluse, and he did live in that cave for much of his adult life. I also found out he died there, and that's all there is to find out about Richard Rowe and the old man in Old Man's Cave. So that story ended as quickly as it started. It was just too long ago, and no one had documented anything else except those few details that I just gave you. So I was in the visitor's center in Hocking Hills, and I saw a plaque about Emma Gatewood. And I thought, well, wait, why is this trail named after her? And why did I never know that this trail I've hiked so often carried her name? So I started to dig a little bit further, and that's when I found out that she was the very first woman to solo hike the Appalachian Trail in one through hike. So there were several things I just said there. I said first woman, some men had done it. And I said solo hike, which means that she hiked completely alone and in one through hike. So that means she set out and she did not stop hiking until she finished almost 5 months later.
I have spoken to a few people who have hiked the Appalachian Trail start to finish, and it's a challenge. I've got to say that. I've never done it. I've camped near it. In fact, I go camping in that area, I would say within walking distance of the trail at least once a year. But it is a long trail. It's very challenging. And here we're talking about Grandma Gatewood. She was 67 years old at the time. And of course, like you say, she was the first woman to successfully solo hike the trail in one continuous journey. This was back in 1955. That is absolutely amazing.
You think of what grandmothers were doing in the mid 50s, and that was not usually walking over 2,000 miles alone. And the trail is hard. It's hard now, but it was even harder back then. And I think that was one of the things that surprised her. She was in a doctor's office in the early 1950s when she picked up an article in a magazine and read about the Appalachian Trail. And the article made it sound like this lovely little walk and how wonderful an experience it would be. And so that's why she set her sights on completing that walk. And when she got there, she found out it wasn't always lovely. There were many places where the trail was not marked. The trail then and now does go through public and private property. There were places where trees had fallen months or years ago and no one had removed them. There were places where it was just completely impassable, forcing her to walk miles out of her way. And so she found out it was going to be harder than she thought, and she also then became an advocate for the Appalachian Trail. And then here in Ohio started was in the founding chapter of the Buckeye Trail Association.
Now, let's keep this in mind, too. We're talking 1955. Back then, we didn't have the luxuries of the modern-day camping gear and the high-tech sneakers we have today. So much has changed.
And she was actually a forerunner for what's called like a minimalist hiking, lightweight hiking. She didn't carry the big metal backpacks that people have now. She didn't carry a tent or a sleeping bag, and she didn't wear hiking boots. She hiked in tennis shoes. She went through 6 or 7 pair of sneakers on her journey, on her 2,000-mile journey. She would know when it was getting time, and she would leave the trail to go into a town and buy a new pair of her favorite kind of high-top sneakers, and she would go on from there.
Now, you mentioned in your book here, Grandma Gatewood's first attempt to hike the trail was from Mount Katahdin. Generally, that's where people end up. They start here in the south and head north. But in her first attempt, she started at Mount Katahdin and headed south. What happened during that first journey?
She did. She found out she was pretty ill prepared for that first trip. And I think that's one reason why I think this is such a good story for young readers, for kids to read, because she literally had a miserable failure on her first attempt. She did start in Maine, and I'm not 100% sure why. It was July, and I think that she knew it was going to take 4 to 5 months, and she didn't want to start in the south and end up in really bad, cold, snowy weather in the north in November or later. So she started in July in Maine, and there's a section up there called the 100-Mile Wilderness that is some of the hardest hiking of the whole trip. And so she was really starting in a challenging spot. And like I said, things were not well marked. She came upon a sign that had been rotted by the rain that she should have followed, but it was no longer legible. So she got lost very early on. Luckily, some of the park rangers that had seen her sign in at the beginning at Mount Katahdin were watching for her farther down the trail. And when she didn't show up, they actually sent search planes looking for her. And the first time she saw the planes circling, she didn't know that was she that she was looking for, that they were looking for. So they found her. They looked at her age. They looked at her condition. She had stepped on her glasses and broken them. She had been bitten by black flies. She had been completely lost. And they literally said, "Go home, Grandma." And so that kind of gave her the nickname Grandma Gatewood to more than just her grandchildren.
Okay. So she went home at that particular point, but she was still determined that she was going to make this journey one way or the other. So
absolutely,
she was
not going to give up.
It was several months later, after she had gone out west and visited family and visited friends and things like that, she came back and she began her journey again from Mount Oglethorpe, located right here in Georgia. And this is where most people begin their hike, is from Georgia to Maine, and they start in May, right. and that's right about the time that she made her second attempt. And not only did she complete this hike in just one journey, she did it a second time and a third, and she started this at age 67.
Yes, she did. She really, really loved hiking. She loved walking, even back home in Gallia County, Ohio, on the Ohio River. She never got a driver's license, and she walked, whether it was just 5 minutes or 5 miles to visit neighbors. She walked to town. She walked everywhere. And so she wasn't really an experienced hiker, but she loved nature and she loved being outdoors, and she didn't mind being alone either. After raising 11 kids, you can see why maybe she just liked the peace and quiet of being out in the middle of nature and being outdoors.
There comes that time, yes.
And then she also hiked the Oregon Trail after her Appalachian Trail experience.
So that kept her young at age, no doubt about it. And here's the thing. I got to admit, back in 1955, that's before my time. And I don't even remember what age I was when I first learned that there was such a thing as the Appalachian Trail. Now, one thing does remain the same here is the fact that challenges of the trail are just the same as they were back in 1955. Nothing there has changed. You're going to have the wildlife, you're going to have snakes, you're going to have all kind of things that are still there on the trail. And Grandma Gatewood experienced all of those things, I'm sure, in all three of her journeys.
Yes, she did. She had a great respect for the wildlife. I believe it was one of the Sports Illustrated reporters that said that she flipped snakes with her cane, with her walking stick. And she said later, I never did that. If I saw a snake, I very carefully went around it. She respected the dangers that surrounded her and didn't take chances.
Everybody I know who has hiked the Appalachian Trail shares one thing in common with Grandma Gatewood. When they see a snake, they walk around. They leave it alone. Very smart thing to do.
Absolutely. It's not something you want to challenge.
Yeah. Now, I've got to say this, hearing this and talking with you and reading the book, it just goes to show you're never too old to accomplish your dreams. The folks that I have talked with who have hiked the Appalachian Trail, I say to them, I say, oh, I'm too old for that. There's just no way at my age, and here I am turning 60 next month. I say, I couldn't do that. Well, it's obviously you can do it. It's been done, and this is proof of it.
That's right. That's a phrase that I think I have taken out of my vocabulary is you're never, I'm too old for, because as a writer and as a writer of children's picture books, I was reminded often several years ago as I collected rejection slips on some of my first novels that have now been published that Laura Ingalls Wilder was over 60 before she got that first Little House book published. And so here I have two role models that were, in the later parts of life that fulfilled their dreams. And so, yeah, I've kind of adopted the you're never too old to try.
Yeah, absolutely right about that. And one thing I noticed here in the book, too, when Grandma Gatewood, Emma Gatewood, made her first journey, her first successful journey, word got out pretty quick. And as she was coming through some of these towns, there was the press, photographers waiting to talk with her, to take pictures of her. And she, from what I gather, she was kind of shy, wasn't she? She really didn't.
She was a little.
Wasn't looking for all that notoriety.
She really wasn't. She didn't do this to become famous. Afterwards, she did enjoy being on the Groucho Marx show, being on the morning TV news shows. She ended up in Sports Illustrated again, and National Geographic followed her. So she kind of liked the attention afterward, but at the time, she really just wanted people to get out of her way so she could finish her hike.
Well, I got to say this, anytime that I am camping now near the Appalachian Trail, I'm going to be thinking about Grandma Emma Gatewood, because, I've never thought about this, never thought of somebody that age would accomplish this on 3 different occasions. This is absolutely fantastic. And Michelle, this is a great children's book. Why don't you tell our listeners where they can get a copy of When Grandma Gatewood Took a Hike?
Sure. The book is published by Ohio University Press. That means it's available at any bookstore, at a brick and mortar bookstore that you would walk into. You could mention it by name or by ISBN number if you look that up. It's also available online at Amazon.com, at BarnesandNoble.com, and then at the publisher, Ohio University Press, if you search for them. Just about anywhere you can buy a book, you can buy a copy of When Grandma Gatewood Took a Hike.
Well, Michelle, this is a great book. I am so glad you shared it with us. I want to take this opportunity to thank you for being on the program today. And if you'd like to get a copy of the book, if you're a family camper, if you have young kids, this would make a great Christmas gift under the tree. Get a copy of it as soon as you can. When Grandma Gatewood Took a Hike, written by Michelle Houts, who's joining us on the program today. Michelle, it was great talking with you. Thank you for being here.
Skip, thank you so much. It was wonderful to talk with you, too.
Well, there you have it, folks. What a wonderful book. And believe me, I promise you will enjoy it. And like Michelle says, you can pick up your copy today. You can find it on Amazon.com or your local bookstore, When Grandma Gatewood Took a Hike. And I got to say this, if you are a young family, if you have young children in your life that you want to introduce to nature, if you want to introduce them to camping, introducing them to the outdoors, you can start by picking up this wonderful book, When Grandma Gatewood Took a Hike, written by Michelle Houts. And like I say, I'm a youngster at heart, so I enjoy it. And with the holidays coming up, this would make an excellent Christmas gift under the tree, or an excellent birthday gift, too. And I think you'll enjoy it. It's time now for our featured campground of the week here on the Happy Camper Radio Show.
Yep.
We haven't gone out to this state in a while, but we're going to head out there right now. It's California. We're going to visit Upper Pines, part of the Yosemite National Park. It's a year-round campground, so if your pickings are pretty slim right now as to where you're going to be going or where you plan on going to, some of these national parks and national-operated campgrounds, they close down early, and right about now is that time. But this is a great campground. It's open all year long. If you're visiting California, you happen to live out there, consider Upper Pines. It's located in the breathtaking Yosemite National Park in Central California's rugged Sierra Nevada mountain range at an elevation of 4,000 feet. The site is situated in the heart of Yosemite Valley, an awe-inspiring landscape containing many of the famous features for which Yosemite National Park is known. They have hiking trails ranging from easy to paved, 2-mile round-trip walk Mirror Lake Meadow to the grueling but rewarding 14 to 16-mile trek to Half Dome. Now, permits required for that one, but both of these trails begin near the Pines Campground, and there are many additional trailheads within Yosemite Valley. 14 to 16 miles, that's nothing compared to the Appalachian Trail. So, this might be a good campground to actually get started with, or just about any campground that has some hiking trails. There's a lot of good ones out there. And if you're looking for the exercise, if you want to get your legs in gear, if you'd like to plan a trip somewhere down the road to hike the Appalachian Trail, this would be a great start. The campground is the largest of 3 reservation campgrounds in Yosemite Valley. It offers paved roads and parking spurs, flush toilets, and drinking water. Each campsite contains a picnic table, a fire ring, a food storage locker, and Yosemite's free shuttle bus stops near the campground entrance. Check out their activities and amenities on their website. And very, very important, make sure you take note of some of the know before you go items. Remember, this is bear habitat, so food and toiletries must be stored 24 hours a day. Food storage lockers are provided in all campsites. Absolutely no food should be stored in your vehicles. Dispose of garbage immediately in bear-proof dumpsters, and these rules are strictly enforced. If you're looking for some camping out west, you may want to consider Upper Pines in California. It is our featured campground of the week here on the Happy Camper Radio Show. And as always, if you have a campground that you would like for us to feature on the program, by all means, get in touch with me, Skip, S-K-I-P, at happycamperradio.com, and make sure you include a link to the campground website. Well, we enjoyed having Michelle on the program today. It's a wonderful book, like we say, When Grandma Gatewood Took a Hike. Be sure to pick up your copy at your local bookstore or on Amazon.com. That's about all the time I have for today. And we'll be back with you again real soon with another edition of the Happy Camper Radio Show. Remember, friends, every pet deserves a loving home. Do exactly like I did. Visit your local shelter and adopt a pet today. You can find us online anytime at www.happycamperradio.com. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter at Camp Talker, add us to circles on Google+, and now subscribe to our YouTube channel. The Happy Camper Radio Show is a presentation of Skip Huber Productions. I'm Skip. I am a happy camper. And no question about it, my friends, I'm going to do my very best to make a happy camper out of you. Catch you again real soon. You're listening to Happy Camper Radio.